light, red light. Good morning, everybody. We are now live streaming on YouTube. It is March 1st, the first day of spring. And boy, am I telling you, I am happy to see the snow level go down in my yard. It's getting close. It's getting close. How's things going there in sunny Arizona, Michael?
So we don't know what weather is here because we're going from 80 degrees to 69 degrees, 68 degrees, and then 80 degrees.
Oh.
So for me and my plants, we all know I like plants. It's kind of hard to decide when I'm going to fertilize. But right now, it is a good 79 degrees today and going to be a little bit hotter as we go along. Yeah, we are not in NOLA anymore, as David hinted to. Jason Artley missed his flight. Well, no, you didn't miss your flight. So correction.
Yeah.
The snow delayed his flight.
No, not even really the snow. It was a combination. I missed probably
like
12 different
snow,
flights
right?
and delays.
Yeah.
The plane had issues. So I spent 3 hours on the plane on the runway on Monday, and they couldn't get us back to the gate because there was no mechanic at the airport to fix all the other stuff that was going on, because it was like 15 below or 10 below or something. It was not great. So through some travel magic, instead of getting in New Orleans at 11 o'clock a.m. on Monday, I ended up finally getting there at about 1:30 p.m. on Wednesday. So we had some adventures, but not all weather related. It was more staffing, as we were sort of talking about, chit-chatting before we started this. Workers are hard to find, and that includes for airports or coffee shops or anything else.
Agreed. So we are here to kick off today's spaces. And in terms of spaces and how they work, it's more in terms of the generating them. Coming from Revit is probably where we'll start off. What do you think, Jason? And then we'll go over from there into review, and we can let you then take over and talk about that.
Yeah.
Let me bring open Revit then.
We started talking about spaces, and while we're coming up with these topics, trying to get ahead of things so we know what topics we want to talk about each week. And when it comes to spaces, we were talking with some of our teams here, and how do we explain spaces to the general public, people who don't use Revu, and especially the Revu users who don't know what that button does. What does that exactly mean? And I was trying to think of an analogy for that, and it actually ended up being easier than I thought. Here in your house, your living room is a space, your kitchen is a space, your bedroom is a space. And when we have a project, especially a PDF project, how do we organize our stuff to be smarter than page 3, page 4, page 12, whatever? Let's break it down into office areas or living spaces or parking lot areas, thinking site planning, tracks, blocks, all the different parts of any type of AEC project, even construction phasing, right? That could totally be used as a space. So
do we want a residential home or a commercial?
We haven't done residential in a while. Let's do that.
Okay. I'll let you go back to talking.
So yeah, we'll organize our projects into spaces to better allow us to compartmentalize or provide that container for that data, whether it be markups or measurements or comments, whatever. It's going to make it easier for us to not only highlight where these things are, but it's going to make it easier for, quantities all around. So we will talk about the Revit workflow, including Revit rooms. Thanks, Matt. We'll talk Revit rooms and what does that mean for Bluebeam spaces. And I've actually pulled up a little civil plan and profile that we're going to use as well to illustrate this concept.
So you have something different, okay, that we're going to use from Civil 3D?
Yeah, I was doing a demo for CTC software yesterday, and I ended up with a generic plan and profile, and I was like, ooh, I could reuse this for Bluebeam. So
Bluebeam Revu?
I could use it for Bluebeam Revu or Bluebeam drawings or Bluebeam, all types of things. You almost got me there.
I'm just squaring this up on the sheet. Well, we can watch as I'm squaring things.
You may have heard us say all things Bluebeam, and Bluebeam it's really easy to call Revu Bluebeam because that's what we've been talking about a lot. But there's a lot more to the company than just Revu.
Agreed. So I just have a plan set open in Revit, and I think where we should start off at the beginning of this is that in order to print out rooms, so let's talk about this in grand scheme of things, and Matt alluded to this at the beginning. Spaces are rooms in Revit. So in order to print out your rooms as spaces in Revu, you have to have the plugin capability. And the only way to have the plugin capability is CAD or Extreme. You have to have either or of those in order to be able to have your add-ins here and then have this Bluebeam printer add-in. Once you have this, though, you're able to do not just the spaces, you're also able to print out 3D PDFs, which we have planned to talk about here in the future as well. But in order to print out spaces, you can't just hit create PDF. You need to change your settings and select a little checkbox here where rooms, again, that's a Revit item. Then spaces are a Revu item. And maybe I should say Bluebeam Revu. So then it kind of separates because they both start with an R. So Revit, right? So Autodesk Revit are rooms. And then spaces are Bluebeam Revu. And that's how we're going to track things. Does that seem clear?
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing that you could do here is also rooms can have area measurements pre-assigned. You can create area measurements after the fact in Revu from your spaces to area. But if you wanted to have spaces created and generated and also have rooms exported with area, so you'll have a space and an area measurement in that same location, you could do that automatically here, which I'm not going to do. I just have a random sheet here that I just created and threw this view onto the sheet. So I'm just going to print out this specific sheet here. And you can set up any settings that you want to have, page setup here, whatever the native Revit settings are, or you could create your own. It's completely up to you. Actually, I don't even think this is set up correctly from there. So I can just do custom. And this was the sheet size.
No idea what
I think it was an ArcD 22 by 34. What'd you say?
That looks better. No, that looks 36 by 24. That's my guess. Although
you just confused me. I think it is 22 by 34. Okay.
Okay.
Lost my train of thought. Squirrel.
Right. D. Already?
Okay. And here we go. Nope, offset center. And then same typical settings that we have. And please don't click this. I know typically you have the ability to select raster versus vector. And it does typically have a raster when you're printing out from a rendered PDF. And Matt told me about this, by the way, and Matt's here, I think. But then we can go through and create our PDF. And we could have printed it from there from before, but I'm going to do it here. And then I'll just save it to my desktop. If I'm correct, it's going to just open up from here as well. Yeah, correct. Oops.
Look at that.
I didn't check the spaces, but yeah. Go back because when I hit exit out, I didn't create the spaces.
There you go.
And you could create a file from here as well. And close it.
Yeah, make sure you close that thing first. There we go.
So I'm going to overwrite it, which typically you shouldn't do, but.
There we go. So notice what happened, what's different now from the first time?
Do I notice, or are we asking
everybody? Now we got purple stuff everywhere.
So it doesn't come color coded. So if we were to do any color coding for any of the factors, it doesn't come with any of it. But you can go through and I probably should have edited this because I'm thinking Matt's going to be like, hey, I thought I threw the right. Did I edit the second floor? Yeah. Let me throw the second floor on versus the first floor because I hear Matt screaming at me, hey, your tags and stuff. You know, we'll do this one.
Matt would never yell at you.
Let's go through. It's also because they have the square footage here.
Weird.
We'll just keep what I had. Okay. So from here, you have the ability to go to your panel of spaces. Now it's printed them out by default of whatever the naming convention was originally from Revit of your rooms, right? And then it gives it a number. So numbering from whatever the first one it was that it created originally. Now you can go through and start creating your own color code if you wanted to. That's completely up to you. But once your in spaces panel populates, and again, if you don't have Revit, you're not in that design environment, you can create your own. And we watched Doug do this as well. And actually, I got a tip from Doug, which is having an overall and then having the separate ones. That way, you're having the name of what sheet it's on or level, for instance, and then you have the location of where it's at. And I believe that was a tip from Doug when he was on here talking about his workflow. But when you're in here, you do have the ability to go through and redo the properties of them. So if you wanted to change this to a different opacity here, you can go through and change the color code for whatever you'd like for different areas and locations. It's completely up to you. And again, that area measurement, like we said, we didn't have at the beginning, you can come back and recreate it. You can also create a snapshot from this location as well. Maybe you want to create an enlarged plan somewhere, right? So you have a single sheet and then you go through and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to insert a blank page. Oops, not another page, but a blank page. We can go through and then paste that snapshot at that location, right? And maybe we want to have an enlarged plan for our master bath or something to kind of get a better location of an area. And you'll see which sheet it's on for whatever it's named as, and that's that location of it there. And you can go through and change this one to something different if you wanted to, up to your workflow. And what's the benefit of this? Aside from being able to create your own snapshots, your own area measurements, and having these locations, the benefit comes down to also making punch lists, right? So you're doing your QA, QC workflow. It's going to itemize per place. And that's where Doug was talking about how you could itemize by location, which this doesn't have a location or anything. But if this was the first floor, you put first floor overall and then had your location, that would be the benefit of doing that. So I'm going to go through and add a new one. This is going to kind of coattail on the fact that you can add spaces after the fact. If you don't have Revit, you don't have the model, you just have your sheet sets, you can add them by clicking the spaces panel, and then there's the add sign next to it. I know even for me, like I have to get in there and see that that plus sign's there. So it's just the left one. The filled one is the highlighting of spaces, and the one to the right is editing any existing spaces. If you click that, you'll be able to go through and select one and move any of these or add any additional nodes. This left one over here is going to be able to add a space. So typically I would cover an area from here to here, and I would name this, we'll just put level 1. And this will be a try for me because typically I'll add it first and then add an embedded one. So I'm hoping, no, it has them all in here. Yes, so it has level 1. So you can see the hierarchy directly here of how these are working, right? You have the sheet name, but then you have level 1 and then all of the ones below. So I can minimize that level 1, and then you have these embedded into them, which is great. So when I go into here, I can go through and do a punch list walkthrough like my paint touch up, right? Especially for something in residential, as we're going through and checking our paint and seeing if anyone dinged anything while they were going through, or they just didn't do it correctly. As you're placing them, what the benefit is when I go down to here, and again, I like moving my panels away that aren't being used so I have better real estate. And I have spaces enabled right here, and I can organize by space. So you have level 1, right? So that's that overall that I created, and it's in the great room. There's a paint touch up that needs to be taking place right here.
This is telling you, the reviewer, whomever is doing the quality control or the red lines or whatever, it's further directing you where to go. So it makes this easy, especially when it comes to quantities and stuff.
And this is going to be a big thing, especially when we have this release of something coming at some point of a different additional solution from Bluebeam, is having spaces before when you're doing something like an RFI or submittal, right? So that it knows that location automatically, so you don't have to type it in. So it reduces a step for those people out in the field of where that location is, and creating a list, right? So if I go through and do the summary report, it's going to print these out specific to the locations, and we can start adding some more if we wanted to. I don't know, we'll put a bubble on surface in the master bedroom here. So we can see these starting to pour out where they are location wise. And then we can address them by location if we wanted to. And let's see, do we have any questions?
Couple questions here. So one from Doug when it comes, or sorry, one from David when it comes to your punch list. Can we add a leader to that to point out areas specifically?
I don't know how this one was created.
That one does not have.
Yeah,
that
this
function.
one does not. So what you would probably want to do, if it's going to be something that has a leader centric one, it would so they have a comment one here. It would probably be something like a call out, but the comments, you wouldn't be able to add a leader later on, because we talked about this before.
It'd be a text box.
Yeah, because you would have to edit, the text would be editable as the comments.
Right.
The benefit of having this is that you have an abbreviation of it, and then the comment is associated to like the circle of the grouping. You can come back and just add an arrow. I know it's 2 clicks, which is unfortunate. They have one that's a call out, right? So it has the painting subject already, and they can say touch up, right?
Or windowsill or at junction or whatever.
Yeah. So they have, it's still painting under subject like all these other ones. So it'll still fall under painting, and then you type the comment, but there is no arrow for it.
Got some good stuff. Here's a tip from Patrick. He likes the level hierarchy. He found a fix for creating spaces in linked models. So I'm guessing this is Revit related. You have to check the add child views, and it will create spaces in the linked models.
Ooh, who said that?
That's Patrick.
So if Patrick has a linked model, and so, okay.
What does that mean?
Patrick.
What does linked model mean?
It's like an XREF for Jason Artley, who uses Civil 3D or AutoCAD. So, well, yeah, because it is like an XREF, because you're not importing it. But if you have a linked model that has spaces, so coming from the structural design world, right? I'm not creating rooms. It's more on the architectural side, like Matt Lynn, right? And I think Jeff's on here. He's on our team as well. They're creating rooms, and they're tying data to those rooms. That's one of the big reasons for rooms. Now, if I linked in their model, apparently you still can create spaces from a linked model. And that was the child views. And I'm assuming they're down here, right?
I don't see the word child anymore, but I'm also.
Me neither.
So you have to check add child views, and it will create them in linked models. Add child views. Where's this spot at there? Under what to plot? Go back to general. What to plot? Oh, right there. Go back. Close that up at the top right corner. Add current views. See how add child views is grayed out.
Okay. So you're not going to select views. Mm-hmm. You have to say all sheets or current sheet. So
there you go.
So does it just automatically do it then for selected sheets?
Interesting.
I'm wondering if it does that automatically for selected sheets.
Well, that's a cool tip there, because yeah, I wouldn't have seen that because it's grayed out really, really light.
I wouldn't understand what child views would be correlating to.
But that,
Yeah.
well, the child should probably bring whatever's linked in, right?
Yeah.
Not LinkedIn, but
But
extract in my
this could
terms.
also be like a dependent view, but you'd only have a single view on the sheet. So I don't know. Yeah. Makes sense. They should just put add linked views.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Make
That's
a
a good one.
recommendation right there in review.
Anything else?
Yeah, thanks for that, Patrick. That was good. We've got a question from Matt and a great question from Chris. So
Okay.
we'll let you finish this train of thought, and then we'll go back to that.
Me?
Yeah.
I wasn't on a train of thought.
Okay. All right.
We were on the rabbit hole.
The rabbit hole?
Back.
All right.
So, yeah.
So question from our buddy Matt Lynn here. If you created spaces manually, aka not exported from Revit, would a row be added to the markups list for each space? Absolutely. Right? You don't have to use Revit at all. I use spaces, and you all know how I feel about Revit. So you can create them manually, and when you create them, you can name them accordingly, right? So Michael, if you pull up your spaces again, so you see the list of names there. When you create that space by hitting that plus sign button straight up, just like he created that level 1, if you created one for the porch there, just make a little rectangle or something, or do the whole thing nicely.
I'm not going to do it nicely because then I'm about to. Oh, I already clicked once. Dang it. It'll be somewhat nice.
Yeah. Make a porch space. So this isn't created from Revit. It is a manual process. You can use dynamic fill for this, by the way.
Ooh, actually, that's a good one.
If you use dynamic fill for this, it does make your stuff a little bit more accurate, in my opinion. So yes, when a markup appears in this new porch area, it will show up in the markups list as level 1 porch, right? It's pulling the level 1 because that space is within that space. And then it will say level 1 porch because that's where it is.
Yep. So as long as it falls under this, right? So if I grabbed this and moved it out, right?
Yep.
Now it's its own outside of that. So that's how the hierarchy works. So I bring it. I wonder how, does it just have to touch it?
Oh, does it allow overlap?
Oh,
no.
It won't.
Interesting.
It has to be completely in. No, I think it's, I don't know what's going on there.
Control Z.
It won't let you. See, it's giving me, there we go.
Oh, it probably doesn't allow other overlapping. Can you have 3 layers? Ooh. I don't know. Maybe that's for another day. Yes, you can. According to Doug, he's calling it.
Yeah, Doug's definitely a master at spaces. Yeah, level 4.
Oh, yeah,
level
look at
1. That. So
that's getting a little out of control there.
Oops.
Oh, see that?
So if you delete this, be aware.
Be careful with your hierarchies, because look what just happened.
Yeah, I can't even. So if I go through and edit this one, it's all of them being selected. So you can't just delete that hierarchy.
Mm-hmm. That's dirty.
So even if it's the whole thing. It becomes one. Ooh.
So
there we go. Move that out.
Button is
then move that. There you go. So that's how you do it. So you have to, just move this one out because they're on top of this one, and then this one can be deleted.
Oh, I wonder if that's a draw order thing. So if you brought that back and then change the draw order.
No, you can't right click and draw order.
Oh, dirty.
Mm-hmm.
Well, go to one of the spaces, not the level 1. Go to like that foyer, whatever. Oh, there's not draw order there. Where there's actually overlap there.
No, I have to go back and play Pac-Man.
Or hit undo a bunch of times. That's basically how I spend most of my day anyway.
Control Z is the most used command. I know for AutoCAD. I don't know for Revit. Okay, what else?
All right. So here's the one I like from Chris. Thank you, Chris, for challenging us. This is a good question. What's the best way to do spaces? Right. So you started with Revit and you converted your Revit rooms into Bluebeam spaces. So Chris is asking, what's the best way to do spaces? Place the space first or the measurement first. So sometimes the space will not show, it's a legend. So what's the hierarchy? If you place measurements before you do spaces, what happens?
So typically the workflow is spaces, and then you're creating the whatever markup it is. I haven't done the adverse because I've always done the other way. So let's go see, oops, not 3D. If you ever open up a 3D PDF, I highly recommend you let it load before you just try to exit out of things, because Revu is trying to process all of the data. So like that, then come back to something like this. Okay. So if we go through and add a measurements, right? And I think this is 30 seconds. Let me change that precision. So we'll just go through and check what these control joints are space-wise. Okay. And then, so currently right now, this measurement doesn't have a space. What happens after the fact? Okay. So it is added to there.
So it does happen after the fact.
And then whatever the superseded one is, would be okay. And it still works, yeah. So the hierarchy is just what it encompasses is, I was trying to think of a word. I'm assuming that would be the best word for that.
So a tip here from Doug, something that he's discovered: do not use a dash in your space names, because Revu automatically adds that dash as a delimiter. So you see in all of Michael's names, he's got space 2, then level 1, then area A is all, there's no dashes there. But if you look in the markups list, it added that dash automatically in between level 1 and area A. So good tip there. It can make your life a little easier. Another good tip from Patrick. I like this one, Patrick. Thank you. You can copy paste spaces from one PDF to the other.
Mm-hmm. You can also, yeah, just be aware, like the naming conventions, it will put it on whatever sheet name it is. So for this instance, my sheet naming convention is not done typically because I like to come in and do a rename from page labels. So we could go through and show you how to do that real quick. You can do it from bookmarks, which typically I create bookmarks first and then come in and create page labels, but you can do the adverse for bookmarks too. So I'm just going to do it from page region, select some data down here. I'm going to do the number underscore and then the name. And just like that, I created my labels, but it doesn't update this.
Negative.
That is a bummer. Why wouldn't it update the sheet name?
That's a good question. And you can't right click on that one, right?
Nope.
So now we even have more of a hierarchy, or not really a hierarchy, an order of operations.
It's saying page label still down here.
Oh. Doug says save your drawing, save your PDF.
Oh, because the metadata is not imprinted yet. What a catch. Doug's the man today.
I thought Doug was the man every day. What's up with that?
Apologies every day.
There you go. Thanks, Doug.
There we go.
Perfect. That solves the problem. Saving it. So how did we know it wasn't saved? Because that little asterisk symbol was showing up on the tab. So if you look at the asterisk symbol on residential elevations, that PDF has not been saved. Fair warning. This has caused other issues with Revu, well, and all types of software, honestly. That caught me off guard last week. I was trying to do something with forms, and it wasn't reacting the way I wanted it to.
I love forms. Yeah. And then you can go through and create bookmarks too for those folks that like to jump through pages from bookmarks. So if you do page labels, and it could be the adverse, you can come in here and just create from page labels, and that's just a matter of seconds, right?
Save this rabbit hole for later on in the month, though.
Okay, sorry.
All right. So back to spaces. We've discussed the order of operations. First, we ideally would have our page label set up properly. Not a huge deal, that one, but to make lives easier, let's get our page label set up first, then do our spaces, create the spaces that we want for those different rooms or areas or sections or whatever, color code them, name them however you like, and then start adding your markups.
And let's talk about dynamic fill, because that is also able to be used. You have to scale your page, and I think this one's a 16th. So what we can do, oh man, I don't want to calibrate. Okay. We can go through and create spaces automatically from the dynamic fill. And right here is your dynamic fill. And I don't think we've shown off this tool a lot. And do we have this pre-planned for any time here in the future?
No, but
okay.
I'm surprised we don't.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite tools to demo.
It
always gets the ooze.
So from here, what you are able to do, it's like a paint bucket. So I always equivalent it to do clip art back in the day, where you were like you press in your left click and it would fill an area, right? So clip art, for those of us now, Matt can't say, oh, you were too young, Michael, because that was part of my day too. So from here, you had the ability to go through and pour this into an area, but you can pre-set up a boundary. So for instance, how this elevator location doesn't have a darker, more profound line, it probably would spill over. So I would create a boundary. So when I'm spilling paint in there, it stops, right? But you can also set up some settings as you're spilling your paint into a location, like your boundary size. So if I go through and set a boundary here from a set location from here to here, shift to go straight, and then enter to finish my line. See, that's the boundary size, and you can make it smaller or larger, because what's going to happen is it's going to go up to that edge. Typically, I like to go a little bit lower. And we can go through and delete that, clear boundaries, and add a new one from here to here, and then enter to stop. And then it will go to that location. Next is your fill size. So when I go and fill, how large is my pour bucket? And again, you just decide your fill speed, how quickly is it going to pour into a location? And then edge sensitivity, high or low. So this is for lines, and you can play with this, but if you put low, it's going to go over those smaller lines quickly. High, it's more sensitivity towards lines, and it will stop at a location. So we'll just go low for this instance, because I have a boundary, and I'm going to assume that Revu isn't going to go over these darker, more profound lines, but we'll see. And then from here, you get to create things after you're done. So these are just my settings. I'm going to bring the settings back up. So again, you have your settings with the drawbar. You have your boundary creation on the left, and then you have your fill to the right of the boundary creation. Now to spill the paint, it's left click and hold as you're going through.
Ooh, it remembered your old boundary.
Yeah.
I bet you needed to close the tool and then restart it.
Yeah. I can just go and click that like that.
There you go. Oh, so close.
I'm coming back.
So it's essentially a paintbrush for that room to make that space or area or polygon or volume.
Yes. And then from here, what we can go through and do is you can create a space. So that's that space symbol right here from the panels. So your icon. you can go through and create a space and name it. And it doesn't have to create it yet. So what I can name this is ELV. Oh, it's EV. And then 1. And then what's great about this is you can actually change your colors from here, because out of the box, right, it's not going to create a color code. And you can create your color code offered right here, which is great. You don't have to go and right click all of them. You can create a polygon markup. You can also create an area measurement. I think that's what you were saying, was you can do an area measurement was one of yours. So if you have an existing area measurement to go through and do this from one of your tool sets, maybe to get a cost estimate of flooring as you're going through to make your spaces, to check the flooring install, we could do all of that in one go. So that's going to go through and create our area measurements, and then any poly lengths if you had maybe the perimeter of floor trim, for those of us that do that as well. And then we have our volume. So we did, I guess, poly length, perimeter. What would be better use case for the floor trim?
Poly length, because we would want a gap for the door opening.
Every segments. Okay.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier. It would give us the cut links, but the door opening, I think that was Doug's thing. That would be your material excess.
Okay.
You know, to give you that fluff factor. But as we were talking before we started today, if you start using Allied BIM for woodworking, maybe that would help with your material waste.
Ooh, save you some money there. Okay. So from here, then you have the volume measurement as well. And then once you've selected, so whatever's highlighted from your selection, you can hit apply. And then it'll go through and create it. So we have a space now.
All magical like.
And these already had layers set up for my measurements on my markups.
Right. So a good way, so David's saying a good way to get your custom tools in dynamic fill quickly is to use them. So that way they show up in your recent tools. All right. We've talked about recent tools and their pros and cons before. You know, if you use recent tools, some profiles have them turned off, but they are pretty handy. And when you create that space or an area or whatever from the dynamic fill, you'll be able to pull down and select those.
Yep. And those will be the exact size of what they are as well, if you do properties mode versus drawing mode, as you can see here.
Very cool. So if you go to the dynamic fill again, so where you have spaces or area, for example, on that dynamic fill toolbar up at the top.
Are you talking to me?
Yep.
Okay, so what?
Up, go to your area one.
Mm-hmm.
And hit the little chevron down. There you go. So now you can see, you can apply that type to there, so you don't have to change it after the fact.
Okay.
Further saving clicks.
And you can do default properties too. I stray away from doing that. That's like doing the default for a specific text or revision cloud. But again, to each their own.
Yeah.
So that is the dynamic fill.
Yep. So when you were doing that overflow, or when you're doing that dynamic fill, you had some weird things going on, and Patrick was asking, how did you undo that overflow? Did you just do the undo?
I forget. It probably was undo. That's why I forgot.
So make it do an overflow a little bit. There you go.
Yeah,
oh, you just Control
Z. Yeah.
There you go. Control Z saves the day yet again.
So it's whenever you do a new click is what it goes back to the first click. Yeah. So if I re-click there to get into there, and then I go here, it's only going to do that.
Gotcha. Pretty clever trick.
Okay. So yeah, David's saying if you're going through, you do clicks of the fill, right? So versus just holding it and just letting it overflow at some point. I guess this kind of works, but like if you get to a closer area, it may go there. So if you're doing clicks, and you can see this is each click, the color change right here. that's when it's going through and clicking. But when I'm holding it, it's solid. And that worked for that. But if you get close to a line, it may overflow.
Oh, there's some factors here. Your settings that Michael looked at before with the edge sensitivity, the size, the fill speed, the quality of your PDF. There are some factors, and I've had some PDFs work really well. So try it first. If it doesn't work, don't give up on it. Just go back to the more clicky method, and maybe slow down your fill speed if you don't have that reaction time,
or
you haven't had your coffee yet.
Right?
You know,
or too much coffee. You probably shouldn't do it. Gotta find that sweet spot.
That's very true. All right. Speaking of which, I want to share my screen. I want to share.
Okay.
Can I share?
Yeah.
There we go. So as we were alluding to, how do we use this in a civil thing, right? So I have the world's most generic plan and profile set up here. But we're going to walk through some of the things we talked about. I'm going to apply the same thing that we talked about with Michael's architectural plan to this civil plan, right? We're going to go through hierarchy of spaces and markups, right? So the first thing I would want to do, this is only one page, right? So I'm not going to spend the time with my page label. I don't care about that as much right now.
Before we go onward, though, let me ask one question. Is there the ability to have a different Y and X measurements for something like this, X and Y?
Yes. So in a profile view, typically these are exaggerated, right? This is whatever this is supposed to be, 20 scale drawing. 1 inch equals 20 feet for here. This is still 20 feet down here. You know, this gap here, 20 feet, 40 feet, so on. And then from here, this vertical, you can see we're doing a lot differently. And we got a squirrel, but this time it's not a squirrel, it's my cat. I locked her out and she's banging on the door and she's making a whole bunch of noise. So I'm guessing I have a mess to clean up when we're done here. So yeah, I can, when I calibrate this drawing, right? So if I go to set my scale, not set, there is that separate Y scale, right? Which would control things accordingly for that profile. We're not worried about this right now, but that's a great question.
But I liked bringing it up just because of you being more on the civil side. So we'll actually go away from the squirrel on this instance and go back to spaces.
So let's talk about our spaces, how we did that hierarchy for that architectural sheet, right? We had that level 1 and then we did the different rooms. Well, let's look at this in this light. I'll pull up spaces. I don't like this profile. I'll switch back to Review Advanced. All right, now I'm in my happy place. All right, spaces are over here where they should be. I'll move this accordingly. So what I want to do is separate this into plan and profile. So I'll create a space here for my plan view, and we'll just call this, I could name it by stations, I could name it by roadway. I'm just going to call it sheet 76 plan, right? And then I'll make another space and I will leave a gap there and I'll call that sheet 76 profile. All right, so now I can start looking at my actual granularity of this area. Now, like I said, this is totally generic, but what I might want to do would be create a space for the actual roadway section. So I'll go create another one, and this would be another use for dynamic fill, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to sort of, whoops, not click that, click once, and then I'll try to follow this around. This is going to be super janky, but whatever.
It'll work out.
And I could get the curb in there. I should get the curb in there. Okay, OCD won't let me do it. So let's grab that curb. There we go. And I don't have to get super close. I'm basically just looking at, you know, where in my roadway do I want to organize my markups? Because I'm going to want to, let's say I'm doing this for a quality control or quantities or whatever. I want to highlight where this is. Because
is that a manhole?
Yes, those are storm drain manholes. So I'll just drew this like this. I really want to hit C for close I don't think that does anything though. And we're going to call this pavement. And then I might do another one. Oh, double click to close. I could do a space here for landscape, and I would go out to my right-of-way line, right? My right-of-way is out here, you know, if this was a proper drawing. Ooh, I wonder if we'll find
and
that
what
out.
is the right of way, Jason?
So every property has a right-of-way, which is usually controlled by somebody other than the homeowner, right? So in this case, a city would maintain up to the right-of-way, which is usually 20 to 50 feet away from the roadway, depending on, or more than 50, depending on what it is. So, man, those squirrels are thick today. I'm telling you. Let's just put it out here. I'm trying to make this quick and easy. So this is where our landscape would be, right? We'd have all sort. Why aren't you clicking here? Interesting.
Just click, yeah. Oh, it's because there's an existing one there. You see it overlapping?
Yeah.
So I would just go higher up. Just do a rectangle, a small one.
Yeah, we'll just do that.
Yeah, works.
I would call this left. Oh, no cap. Left,
So is
right
double
away.
click to close, Doug? See, that scares me though.
Right?
I like hitting enter. So is it double click, Doug?
Yeah, if you're doing a
Single click. Yeah.
there we go. So you could see if I would have spent the time, I could have made proper spaces here, but now I can go do my markups, right? So if I had, you know, rim not flush, and I could have
Okay.
low point.
Double click to close for
Double click.
lines, not rectangles.
I'll try that. Ooh, we'll go here. Hey, come here.
It's probably for all markups, I'm assuming. Can you add control points to your space to change the shape? Yeah, you can. You can convert to an arc. So if you go to
though? Can you
Yes.
though? Don't you want to see this in action? I do.
Okay.
All right. So my left right away here. Notice I can't click on it to do anything. It's just there. I need to come over here and click my edit button. Oops. See, now I have those nodes or control points. If I right click, I can add control points. I can add control points, and I can
You have to click the control point to convert. Yeah.
convert control point to curve. So, oh, I want one down here. Convert you to a curve.
But this is probably that. Yeah. So, ooh.
Lost it.
That
you gotta be hyper with your clicking. Interesting. I don't know about this whole thing. It's certainly, again, Revu is not CAD, and I need to remind myself of that sometime. But overall, not too bad. So now when I'm adding stuff in here, so like text box, no landscaping, boring. So now when I go to my markups list, ta-da. Oh, look at it, got those AutoCAD fonts. That's weird.
I wonder where those came from, Jason.
Where did they come from? Because I used the wrong, whatchamacallit. So here I have my spaces, right? It's not, but it's just saying call out. It doesn't have the same titles that you had because
It's the profile you're in. So you're in Revu Advanced. Revu Advanced has it set up to log it different. Yeah.
Oh, because my column.
Yeah.
Page labels there, spaces there.
So switch to Revu. This happens sometimes. And go back down. This happens sometimes.
Oh.
And then click spaces.
Ah, there we go. Let's drag this over. So yeah, I've got all my AutoCAD fonts came over here. That's because I printed it from Simple 3D actually with the PDF to DWG plot driver and not the Bluebeam PDF one. But you can still see same organization that we've got going on here. My plan, my profile, the container for it accordingly. So if I were to make a summary or whatever else, I would be able to filter out some of those things I don't want to see, like the fonts. But it would just show me the measurements or the call outs or whatever I have in here.
And this could also be used for your instance, the manhole covers. If you were to use storm drain covers, what'd you call them?
Well, these?
Yeah.
Well, in this case, I'm calling rims, but it'd be a manhole cover.
Okay, so manhole cover, because I said manhole and you said it a different way. So manhole cover, if you were to get a count, you could do it by location for space, right? Because I know some folks do that as well in terms of civil departments.
Yep. So there's the manhole itself, the structure, and then there's the casting on top, and then there's the grate. So there's 3 components normally.
So little tip from David, if you have those AutoCAD comments, you can flatten the PDF before you start, and then those go away. So
that is a good one, David. I like that. So let's experiment with that. All right. So here's the thing that we've got going on.
But if you flatten now, everything's going to go away.
That's fine.
Okay.
You see, I've got all this stuff. There's no label to it, right?
If you delete them, do they delete the text or where they are? Oh, you can't even delete them. Wow.
Interesting. Ooh. Here is a tool I've never used. Thank you, David. See, when we started this Morning Coffee Revu thing over a year ago, almost, somewhere around there, it was all about community and building a community. And that's why we've got great folks like David and Doug and Matt and all these, Patrick and all these other great people who are jumping in and helping us out and just sharing the Bluebeam love. So here is a tool that I've never used. Have you ever used this, Michael? We're going to flatten by author. So here's the problem. We have a PDF that was generated by AutoCAD. And with that, the way that I plotted it, it brought in all these comments. And Bluebeam Revu is thinking that AutoCAD text is actually a Bluebeam comment, right? And we don't want to do that. So how do we get rid of that? The comment was, if you flatten it before you start, it will get rid of all of those. And that's absolutely a great idea. But the other option here that David threw out there was to flatten by author, right? So we see here in the markups list, who did what. I made those text boxes and those call outs, but AutoCAD SHX text did all the other stuff that I don't want to see. So I could, of course, filter my markup list and exclude that author, right? That would be one way to do it. But better yet, let's just get rid of it entirely. I'm never going to want to see that. So I'll come up to document and go to flatten. And here I can go through and hopefully
flatten by. So, okay. So Doug mentioned the layer thing, but is there an author? So let's see.
Oh, where's that rabbit hole there, Doug?
No, David had the one that was flattened by author. I'm wondering if you had to go flatten by layer.
Oh, currently selected. So if I would have selected that,
maybe it was that. Yeah. So select them. David said select them. So selecting them would be it, or like Doug was saying, you could add them to their own layer, which is extremely simple. If you just filter those out, shift, right, select all, and then and then right click. You can't even add them to the layer.
Interesting. Okay.
You would have to by filtered.
I can't delete whatever. So filter it. Oh, so I filtered my list. Everything is set to that one. Click on one in the drawing. And then Control A. Flatten. There we go. So instead of using the flatten drop down, I'm going to I filtered my list to only show the AutoCAD SHX. I hit Control A to select them all. And then I right clicked on one of the drawing, not in my markups list. Now I can go to flatten, wipe those out.
And then they're gone. Yeah.
And now problem is solved. So not exactly an easy workflow, but then again, that was the first time I ever tried doing it. So,
okay. So we have a side question. Are we able to e-signature for someone else? So there's a reason behind the password. If you are trying to place a signature for a stamp, you could create for a seal, right? So you're signing and sealing something. That's probably what I would do. And that would be for a stamp. And you could just put the wet signature as an image on the seal of a stamp. E-signature's purpose is to have a password into it. Now, to each their own on whoever gives whoever's password out, but that's specific to the edition of Revu of wherever it's installed, because it's pointing to a file to grab those Bluebeam IDs of those signatures and locations. Then you have to have a password to get in to actually sign it. Again, if you're trying to do what somebody like, I don't know, myself would do in Revit and place a seal and a signature just from a family, you could do that in here as a stamp. Again, that works just as well.
Talk about that later on this month, actually, because we're looking at, can Revu do things that DocuSign can do? Or some of the other software, what can it do when it comes to signing things? Again, printing, we want to kill the printer. The printing industry is our enemy. How can we save that? So certainly a good walkthrough to discuss. All right, we've got just a couple minutes left. Before I do that, I want to make sure that to remind you, there will be a survey that pops up when you exit out of Zoom. Put in some notes in there. Are we doing good? Do you have ideas for future topics? Throw those in there. Those watching on YouTube, thank you and welcome. And put in some comments. What type of topic do you want to see? Because we take a look at all that stuff. That helps us come up with these ideas for future episodes. Because again, we're all about the community. What do you guys want to see? We'll talk about it.
Yeah, they don't go to a wasteland. We look at them. And if you're giving us 4s on our reviews, tell us why. And anything below there, because we can't be better at what we do here if you are all not giving comments associated to those. We didn't do our giveaway today. I know we brought some stuff back from NOLA to not give away because you have their prizes. Apologies. Prizes. We'll have to go to DJ CJ and talk to her when we have some other items. Again, thank you as always. Yeah. Thank you as always, DJ CJ, for making the magic happen in the background. And also, we'll see some photos coming out from NOLA, but we will not see who DJ CJ is. We may have a logo there in place. But thank you all for attending today. Plot twist. Thank you all for attending today, and we look forward to seeing you next week on the Morning Coffee Revu series. As always, if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment, join us live in the Zoom room or on YouTube land. That always works as well. And again, couldn't do this without you all in the community.
Take care, everybody.